Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. It is Monday, and there's a few things that I want to iron out that occurred over the weekend and today. First, I want to start with closing the chapter on the Joe Flacco contract. There was a few things that we weren't able to discuss because it hadn't been finalized yet. And so Flacco finally signed his deal, and so the particulars of the deal are now really being released slowly. And essentially, this is a deal. Okay, let's start with the basis. The deal is 6 years, $120 million. That's what you see outwardly. The outward appearance is that this is a $120 million contract. That's what everyone hears. It's a huge number. Everyone runs with that, and they say, oh, man, he's overpaid. They're paying too much money for Joe Flacco. Okay. As we all know in the National Football League, contracts aren't what they appear to be from the outside looking in. How many times have we actually seen a deal that was signed for 6 or 7 years actually live its course and go all the way to the end of the contract? It rarely happens, if at all, ever in the National Football League. It just doesn't occur. You sign a 6-year deal, you get the first 3 years of that deal, and then by the time you get to the 4th year, when that number probably skyrockets to some unfathomable number, then you redo the deal. The team calls you in the office, restructures the deal, or signs you to an extension, having the deal be essentially reworked and a lot more cap friendly for the team. So let's break this deal down and explain to you exactly what it is. On the outside looking in, it's a $120 million deal. It's really a 3-year, $62 million deal is what it really equates to per footballtalk.com. Now, looking at the specifics of the deal, the first 2 seasons, you're probably looking at $50 to $51 million for Joe Flacco in the first 2 seasons. So we're talking about probably roughly $25 million per year or so. In the 3rd season, he's supposed to make somewhere around another $11 million. So it all really averages out to about $20 million per season. And so it's 3 years, $62 million. That 4th season, however, is when the deal gets out of control. That cap number skyrockets to $29 million. And that's when the Ravens will step in and say, hey, Joe, let's work out an extension on this deal. And it'll make that deal a lot more cap friendly for the Ravens. So essentially what you're looking at with this Joe Flacco deal is a 3-year, $62 million contract with $30 million up front. That's essentially what this deal is at its core. So for all of you out there who are talking about, oh, they overpaid and they did this, they did that. Yeah, he's getting a lot of money. Yeah, he's getting Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, elite type money. Yes, this contract is going to set a lot of teams back, especially if they wind up winning a Super Bowl championship before their quarterback's deal is up. Yeah, it's going to set some teams back. But that's where we are in the National Football League now. It's a new day and age where if you win a Super Bowl and you're a quarterback that gets it done, you're going to be paid handsomely for your services. So that's the Joe Flacco deal in a nutshell. Want to talk about some other things that have transpired today. Today is the last official day for you to franchise a player if you feel like you cannot work out a long-term deal and you don't want them to be able to test the free agent market when it hits next Tuesday. So if you want to have a player guaranteed to be on your roster in the 2013 season and you haven't worked out a deal with them and they potentially will be a free agent come 4 o'clock on March the 12th, then you need to slap the franchise tag on. This is the last day to do so, and some more teams took advantage of that. Now, I failed to mention one other team on Friday that slapped their franchise tag on a player. It's so easy to miss a punter when he has the franchise tag slapped on him. We do this so often with special teams players, but they play such an integral part of the game and for teams that we need to stop downplaying and discounting special teams players, because when they screw up, we're the first to mention it. We're the first to jump on them. But when they actually are the heroes of a game, it seems to go unnoticed sometimes. And so Pat McAfee, the Colts punter, was franchise tagged. And he's the guy that the Colts feel like, hey, we've got an elite punter. We don't want him to test the free agent market, because every year there's teams out there looking for specialists, punters, field goal kickers. And if you don't cover yours up and take care of your own, someone else will snatch them up and pay them probably more than you're willing to pay them. So the Colts said, hey, we don't even want to allow this to become an issue. Let's just franchise him. It doesn't cost us that much to franchise him. Probably about a shade over $2 million a year. Why not? So they franchised Pat McAfee, and so that's the franchise tag for the Indianapolis Colts. But you look, today, more teams decided to utilize the franchise tag as they're coming up against the deadline. The Miami Dolphins elected to slap their franchise tag, and they had several different players that they could have used their franchise tag on. Sean Smith, Jake Long, even Brian Hartline could have had the franchise tag slapped on him, but they elected to go in a different direction. Randy Starks, their defensive tackle, is who the Dolphins elected to use the franchise tag on. And again, he's been dominant ever since he came over to Miami from Tennessee. And so they feel like, hey, he's a presence in our interior of our defensive line. We can't allow him to walk away. Our D-line is probably the best skill group that we have on our defense. We have to keep him in the fold. And so they decided to slap the franchise tag on Randy Starks. Now, that doesn't mean that all those other players that I just mentioned won't get a long-term deal. They're probably still in the works right now as we speak, trying to get a deal done with not only those players, but with Randy Starks as well. Just because you slap the franchise tag on someone doesn't mean you can't work out a long-term deal with them. It just means that he's not able to test the waters and go out and find another team or another suitor that's willing to pay him some money to sign a deal with. He's going to be back on your team for the upcoming season. And so they're going to look to try to still have Randy Starks back with a long-term deal. But in the meantime, they have his services for the 2013 season locked up. You also look at the Dallas Cowboys. Last year, they used their franchise tag on Anthony Spencer. This year, they're using their franchise tag on Anthony Spencer, as the Cowboys and Anthony Spencer, again, can't agree to disagree on numbers for a contract, and so the Cowboys are electing to slap the franchise tag on him again. Now, this time, Anthony Spencer might actually have a gripe. Last season, I think that the Cowboys slapped the tag on him because of potential. They saw what he was becoming, and they didn't want to allow him to flourish fully and bloom somewhere else after they put in the work to help him get to this point. This offseason, though, is different because in 2012, he performed a career-high 11 sacks. He really put up some really gaudy numbers for the Cowboys, and so he felt like he needed to be paid as such. And so now the Cowboys say, hey, look, we understand you want to be paid, but you're not going anywhere else. You're going to be a Cowboy. They slapped the franchise tag on him again. And so I don't know how happy he is about this, because no one likes to continue to play on a one-year deal because there's nothing guaranteed thereafter. But make this known, the Cowboys are not going to allow Anthony Spencer to walk away. They are going to find a way to re-sign him. And I don't know if it's going to be this year or in the offseason next year. They're going to re-sign Anthony Spencer at some point. That's evident by the fact that they won't allow him to walk away, and this is the second consecutive season they've slapped the franchise tag on him. In more Cowboys news, Gerald Sensabaugh, their starting safety from a season ago, has been released. That's a move that is a cap-friendly move for the Cowboys, saving them $1.4 million in cap space, and so he's going to be out of there. And again, I didn't think he was that impressive as Cowboys safety. That's been a position of need for the Cowboys here for the last 4 or 5 seasons strong. And so they'll be looking for more safeties in the upcoming offseason. That might be one of those areas that they look to target either in the draft or in free agency or both, because the Cowboys have really struggled in the safety department for a while now. And so Gerald Sensabaugh has been cut. They also asked Brandon Carr to restructure his deal over the weekend. He was able to comply with the Cowboys. And so another cap-friendly measure taken by the Dallas Cowboys. And like I said, the Cowboys are going to get under the cap comfortably. They're going to make some moves. Brandon Carr said, look, if this will help us win a Super Bowl championship, I'm on board. We need to start winning, though, because I don't really like taking less money. I don't really like redoing my deal that I signed in the first place, which means I was very comfortable with my deal in the first place. I don't really like restructuring my deal, but if it's for the good of the team, I'm on board. So the Cowboys are making moves all over the place in cost-saving measures. Something I found funny over the weekend, and I'm still reading about it today. This is really funny to me because I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have a huge decision on their hands, and this is such a weak quarterback class, and the free agency isn't much better. It might actually be quite worse than the draft itself, and so there's not a lot of options for teams seeking quarterback play in the 2013 season. If you don't already have a stable quarterback situation, you are in some trouble because there's not a lot of relief coming your way via the draft nor free agency. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars are one of those teams that are on the fence about their quarterback. Blaine Gabbert has been in the league 2 seasons now, going into his 3rd campaign. Hasn't really shown you what you want to see from a guy that you think can be your franchise QB. You drafted him to be that guy, and you're not sure if he is in fact that guy. Now you got new management in. David Caldwell is your new GM. You got a new coach in Gus Bradley. And so they did not draft Blaine Gabbert. And so they inherited him. So they can make a move if they so choose. But there's really not another direction to turn to. And so they have to decide if Blaine Gabbert is the guy in Jacksonville or not. And I've already said that I don't think he will end up being that guy. But I think he deserves one last shot. You give him 3 years to figure out if he can get it done or not. He's been riddled with injuries throughout his career, especially last season. He really was not able to play a full season, and he really needs more experience. The more he's on the field, the more he can either throw up all over himself and show you what he is, or he can continue to mature and get better, and you can see, hey, he's actually getting better in these areas. We can work with him. He might be the guy that the Jacksonville Jaguars organization thought he was when they drafted him. But he has to stay healthy, and he has to get a lot better. But the funny thing is, and what I was just talking about has nothing to do with the story that I read over the weekend. The story that I read over the weekend, and a little bit more today, was that, and it's funny, I talked about Buffalo and Pete Meselar's the ex-Bills tight end, former Bills tight end coach, talking about how he feels like the Bills could have been a better team if they had a better quarterback in the 2012 season, and that he thought that Ryan Fitzpatrick was average to below average as a quarterback in the National Football League. It's funny how coaches rip players after they're gone. When they're no longer employed by the franchise, they go out of their way to shred up the person that they see as a problem on that team, or a person that they deemed part of the reason why they were fired in their last location. And so no different in Jacksonville. An ex-Jacksonville Jaguars coach came out, and again, one of these anonymous guys who doesn't want their name revealed. And if you want another job in the league, you won't go out and bash, players that you've just finished coaching. So I guess it's better that way. But anyway, he came out and said, hey, this guy, Blaine Gabbert, it's never his fault. Every time something goes wrong on the field, it's not his fault. Protection wasn't right. He didn't have enough time. Receiver ran the wrong route, ran the wrong depth. It's never his fault. And so in him always blaming something on someone else, his nickname in the Jacksonville Jaguars facility amongst the coaches became Blaine Gabbert. I find that to be hilarious. I love play on words, and his name is Blaine, and they said his name was Blame. That's good stuff. Either way, if he is in fact a quarterback that does not like to assume the blame, you can't be a leader and not take the blame for things. When something goes wrong, as the leader of the team, as the quarterback, you may have been in the right. And look, I'm not saying that you take blame for everything. Everything that goes wrong is your fault. But look, if there's a miscommunication and you and your receiver aren't on the same page, and maybe you were confused, he was confused, and an interception was the result. If you're the leader of the team, you're the quarterback, you step up and say, hey, my fault. I should have made sure that it was clear that we were on the same page. We were both in agreement that you were going to run the out there, not the in. And so that's my fault. I thought you were going in. I thought we were on the same page and you were going to run the dig route and not the out. My fault. Next time I'll make sure that we're on the same page. When you're a quarterback, those are the things that you have to do to make sure that your offense is a well-oiled machine. When you start pointing the finger and blaming people, this thing can quickly fall apart. And Blaine Gabbert will learn that if he has the chance to be the Jacksonville Jaguars starter moving forward, that you have to assume the role as the leader and you can't point the blame somewhere else. You need to have a lot of the blame fall squarely on your shoulders because you are the quarterback. When you win, all the glory goes to you. When you lose, you need to be able to accept the fact that you weren't able to get it done and say, hey, that's my fault. We didn't get it done. I didn't play well enough. We didn't play well enough as an offense. We'll be better next time. And so, blame Gabbert. I hope that's not true, because if it is, man, does he have a long way to go, because he's already not getting it done on the field. If he's someone that can't assume responsibility off the field as well, he's got a big problem on his hands, and he won't be in the league that much longer. So that's a touchdown. Go ahead and throw it up. Want to tackle on this quick extra point. Everyone's been talking about the Darrelle Revis situation in New York, and they've been talking about him being traded and all the trade rumors, and San Francisco is a player now with all these draft picks, and I don't think the 49ers want anything to do with him. But this thing can get ugly. I've heard reports that it may get ugly between the Jets and Revis. There's no need for that. This is my whole thing. First and foremost, everyone is under the assumption that Revis will come back and there will be no drop-off in his play. He'll be the exact same guy, if not better, than he was before the knee injury. Hold on a second. Pump your brakes. Allow the guy to come back and show you that he is still the guy in control of Revis Island. I'm not sold on him yet because he did tear an ACL. This isn't a ankle sprain and he needed to have time to allow it to heal. He didn't break a finger. He didn't dislocate his elbow. He tore his ACL. You need to make sure that this, in fact, is the guy that was the best corner, or at least the consensus best corner in the league before he got injured. And so everyone's going crazy and nuts about trade rumors. I need to see him perform on the field first. I need to know that this is Darrelle Revis, the owner of Revis Island, before I go out and fork over, 2 picks, 2 players, and another pick or cash considerations to be named later. I need to make sure I'm getting the guy that was the best, if not one of the best corners in all of football for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Let me make sure of that first. And so my whole stance on this is, hey, let him get healthy, and then you talk to me about potentially trading this guy. I need to see it on the field. I don't know, and I don't trust doctors telling me, hey, he's fine. He's ready to resume football activities. What does that mean to me? All that means is that he's 100% healthy and he can get back to playing football. That doesn't mean he's 100% back to the player that he was pre-injury. And so let me see what he's about. Let me see that this investment that I could be potentially making is a sound one, and that I'm getting the return back on this investment that I'm going to make. At least from the outset, is going to be what I think it's going to be, and not feel like I'm getting fleeced because I traded for a guy that's coming off an injury and he's no longer the player that he was pre-injury. So that's going to do it for this episode of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me here today on the program. There's many ways to contact or view the show. There's Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Like it. Every video I've ever done is on the Facebook page, so check it out. There's Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Check that page out as well. Follow me on Twitter. There's YouTube, and that's the most probably sound way to contact the show is via the YouTube page. Subscribe. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the page. There's so much content coming out of this page. out of this show. Subscribe so you don't miss a beat as we continue to cover the National Football League wall to wall. So the YouTube page is Louis T. Subscribe. LOUIETEE is the page. Subscribe to the page. And then there's inthelabroom@gmail.com. That is the inbox. If you contact me through any one of those social media websites, it'll come directly to the inbox. If you want to bypass that altogether and come directly to the inbox, that is the way to do so. Again, inthelabroom@gmail.com is the inbox. I thank you for joining me today on the program. Come back tomorrow when we'll have some more to talk about, as free agency will be even closer. We'll be officially 1 week away from free agency, and we'll close the chapter on potential franchise tags. If you didn't do so by today, then we'll talk about who didn't get franchise tagged. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll have some more news to discuss here on the program. I want you to also stay tuned as we continue to finish up the 5-minute or less series. So finish continuing to watch that. And we'll be back here in the lab room tomorrow. Keep your eyes peeled for all those updates. And so, want to see you back here, same time, same place. And as always, have a good one. See you tomorrow.